Recently, I've been trying to frame more and more things from family pictures, original photography, huge canvas art, old college basketball jerseys. And each time I'm over here scouring the internet from different brands, trying to get the dimensions exact, hoping the materials are quality. And that's where FrameBridge steps in and takes away all of the hassle. FrameBridge makes it easy and affordable to custom frame just about anything. You could design and preview your final piece online, schedule to ship your items or drop them off in person, and they're great for giving special gifts to friends and family. Visit framebridge.com or one of their local FrameBridge stores in Southport, West Loop, and River North to start framing. Today on CityCast Chicago, Cook County announces new violence prevention investments. The Southeast Side's forthcoming Quantum campus is still adding new tenants, and the Diana Ross Chicago classic Mahogany turns 50 this year. We're talking about all that and more. It's Friday, July 25th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We are joined by some fantastic guests this morning. Chicago Tribune music critic Britt Julius is in the building. Welcome back, Britt.
Thank you for having me again.
And we've also got, for the first time ever in the building, freelance writer Jasmine Barnes. Jasmine, welcome to CityCast Chicago.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love this podcast.
Come on. If you are new to the podcast, first off, where you been? It's been 4 years and 1,200 episodes. We've been waiting for you. Been rolling out the red carpet for the last 4 years, but we're glad you were finally able to make some time for us. Please, if you haven't listened to CityCast Chicago before, dig through the crates. You can start with just this week. We talked about should NASCAR ever come back to the city after announcing they're going to take a break in 2026. We talked about the shocking decision of Inspector General Deborah Witzberg stepping down, not seeking a second term. We traveled the city looking for some of the best ice cream and Italian lemonade. And then yesterday we put together our ultimate playlist for Summertime Shot 2025. And that's where we're going to start today. I sat down with our good friend Caroline Patton and we put together some of our favorite songs and artists that we've been listening to. Names like Asha Omega, Mick Jenkins, The Football Heads, Matt, and so many other beautiful Chicago artists. So I wanted to get y'all's contribution to the list. Britt, I'm gonna start with you. This what you do. Do you have a song or an album? Bonus points if it's from a Chicago artist that's been on repeat this summer.
A group that I really love that I've been listening to a lot and I actually wrote about, they go by the name Family Junket. They're a massive kind of mega group. I wouldn't say anywhere from about like 8 to 13, 14 members, but they have this sort of like kind of jazzy neo soul sound. It really reminds me of like, you know, that kind of music from like 98 to like 2004, really warm, kind of like sensuous, but they write about music that talks on a lot of like specific issues, whether, you know, just fun and beautiful, but also like things like police violence and all of their musicians kind of have different backgrounds, but to me, I think that they really kind of capture all of those different like emotions and situations that kind of like happen in summer. The headiness, the sadness, the yearning, all of those sort of different feelings. So they're from Chicago, and I think that they're really great. They came out with kind of like a long form EP that was called Did You Tell the Bees? So would highly recommend them.
Hey, Britt wrote an amazing write-up on them back in May that we will drop in the show notes. And also, this is perfect timing because they're going to be performing at Tuesdays on the Terrace, August 5th from 5:30 to 8. I pulled up on the MCA.
I didn't even know that.
See, I got you, G. I got you. You said the name and I immediately was like, I could walk and chew gum at the same time. I will suggest if you're trying to pull up on the MCA for Tuesdays on the Terrace, I would suggest getting there when the doors open, y'all. The line was around the block last week for Shawnee Dez. And so Family Junket, August 5th. And again, check the show notes for Britt's write-up. Jasmine, over to you. You got a song, artist, album you want to put us on this summer.
Yeah, so LaKaylia 47 has been a favorite of mine for years now, but she came out with a new album this summer and it's so good. Like, I just feel like this is, I don't know, to me, the first time where I feel her in her full power as an artist. Her music's really playful and funny, but also just has like a level of respect for hip hop and the craft and the legacy that I think is really special. So highly recommend. My two favorite songs right now are 450 and Soft Serve. I just feel like they're they're giving a specific kind of energy that I'm trying to embody this summer.
Come on, LaKayla 47. I am not familiar with them at all. And so I appreciate you putting me on today. Two new artists for me today that we did not talk about in our episode earlier this week. And just another reminder that none of our lists are exhaustive. If you are listening to this, we try to scour the city for the best ice cream, the city's past for the best movies, and the contemporary scene for the best music. But we need not only our amazing guests, but we need our listeners to help build out our list. So if you want to contribute, 773-780-0246. Leave your name, your neighborhood, and the song you want to put on our playlist. For the last few years, we have tried to really go above and beyond to help Chicagoans understand just how much of our city, county, and state finances have been essentially buoyed by federal COVID-19 relief dollars. From public transit relief to new teacher and support staff hires and CPS to the guaranteed income pilots we saw and the wave of anti-violence programs we saw created and invested in over the last few years. So much of that work relied on these federal funds, amongst others. And now much of that money is either spent or allocated to be spent. And the fear, of course, is that facing huge budget gaps across the board will lead to so much of this progressive work being undermined or downright cut. Luckily, Jasmine, at the county level, at least, we got a little bit of positive news this week. Can you break that down for us?
The news came out yesterday that $25 million is going to be allocated toward gun violence intervention programs and prevention services, which is really incredible and just another way for us to like improve and invest in the support that was really started during the pandemic era, like federal funding, but that sort of dried up as of late. Yeah, we're seeing, the county board president, Tony Perkwinkle, was saying on Tuesday the importance of making these kinds of investments and really allowing these community organizations, more autonomy to think about street outreach, case management, victim services for the coming 2 years. And so, I just really found the news exciting and heartening, especially knowing how much prevention is like the key to decreasing violence and really allowing communities to engage and support each other on multiple levels, right? Like really what we're looking at is wrap around like holistic services and care for the neighborhood and the ways in which that can prevent, gun violence, especially we know violence, increases in the summertime. So having these interventions coming out now feels really timely and important.
I believe 28 organizations, 18 of which the funding will go to programs like street outreach, case management, victim services, as you mentioned.
Yep.
We actually sat down with violence interrupter, someone who is doing the work on the streets every single day out in neighborhoods like North Lawndale to try to intervene in conflict before it happens, to meet with victims and survivors in the immediate aftermath of a shooting or a death in the family, connecting people with the therapeutic resources they're going to need, the financial resources, maybe the housing or employment resources they're going to need. And by the time we finished that conversation, I felt so overwhelmingly not only in awe of the work that they do, inspired at the vulnerability he shared in the conversation, how much stress and trauma him, his team, and his organization are trying to manage. And yet by the end, he made it very clear that this work is tenuous, that all of us are fighting month over month, year over year for funding. And these type of organizations got funded by the county to the tune of $110 million through that COVID relief money. And so while this $25 million is a huge investment that's going to help people keep going, the type of investments we saw over the last couple of years that mayors and governors and county board presidents really built their progressive bona fides over, like, look at all of this new money. We're not likely to see those type of major investments again, or at least in the next few years. And so this news was very welcomed by organizers across the city this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the first time I really came into contact with folks who were doing this kind of work, I was chatting with Chicago survivors last year during the Inglewood Peace Fest, which is really like an initiative in the community to bring folks together, celebrate, and also recognize folks who've lost their lives to gun violence, family members that have been lost. And the emphasis was really on just needing more resources to do the work, right? Like the amount of care, both beforehand in terms of preventative, but also when acts of violence happen, when deaths happen, what does it look like to care for family members, to care for communities that have been impacted, and to think about ways to create like ongoing long-term prevention. I think that, yeah, this investment just feels really hope giving, especially thinking about all of the federal cuts that have happened across the board, especially to services that actually benefit Black and Brown communities, and benefit, communities, particularly on the South and West sides that are heavily impacted.
We're going to drop a link in our show notes to some of this coverage. Please take this list of organizations as a starting place if you want to donate time, support resources, but also find some of the organizations across the city they partner with, other organizations still looking for increased funding. I will say, over the last couple of months, we have heard Governor Pritzker and especially Mayor Brandon Johnson come out and talk highly about reductions in violent crime, whether it's armed robbery, whether it's shootings, whether it's gun deaths in the city. And I will say, I think they have done a solid job of making sure they are not just lauding the praise onto investments in police and a surveillance state, but a lot of them have talked about the need to keep investing in these organizations, these anti-violence collectives, these street interrupters and caseworkers. One thing I know about the relationship between Cook County, the state, and the mayor is there is a small sense of competitiveness there. Like Toni Preckwinkle is announcing this precisely because she also knows the state and the city cannot announce these kind of investments right now while their budget conversations are strapped. And so my hope is that this puts the pressure on them to know that they still need to deliver as well.
Yeah, I love that. If the competition is bringing more resources to the community, let's do it.
This episode of CityCast is sponsored by Babbel. Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, maybe even a whole new life. So why not start that journey today? You can start speaking a new language with confidence thanks to Babbel's conversation-based technique that quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel, just one of the 12 languages you can learn with it, including Dutch, French, Italian, which is going to be next for me, Turkish, and Russian. I love the interactive dialogues that Babbel has, which allow me to practice what I've learned right away, and also the speech recognition function, which makes sure I'm getting the pronunciation just right, which honestly, usually I'm not. Also, I love that Babbel's lessons always cover actual things that I talk about in the real world, like food, talking to people I've just met, and also food. Staying motivated to learn a new language has never been easier thanks to real-time feedback, progress trackers, and handy visualizations, in only 10 to 15 minutes a day on Babbel's mobile app or website. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Britt, over to you. So many of your stories today celebrate milestones in this city. And one of my favorite things about this podcast, I said it to y'all earlier before we started recording, is constantly learning about people, iconic Chicago organizations and institutions that for real, I never even knew existed. Like My Chicago is forever expanding, and that continues today because you want to teach us about a Chicago-based record label celebrating over 20 years in the game. Who is the Numero Group?
They are an incredible label, primarily known for their reissuing. So they have made a name for themselves by finding really obscure, and by obscure I mean finding records and singles that people were selling at garage sales in a suburban Ohio town. Right? They kind of came to prominence in the 2000s for a lot of their soul reissues. So a lot of Detroit soul in particular, things like that, underground soul, made by artists who kind of came out with one song and then went back to their life, working at a factory or things like that, but really beautiful, powerful, important music. And so they actually celebrated their 22nd anniversary recently. They had a huge party for it, and it kind of coincided with this major reissue of kind of like Midwestern emo music.
Okay.
So while they're best known for their soul reissues. They have covered everything from, rock and funk and gospel and emo. And now they're sort of getting into reissues of like house and techno music as well. But they're really just proponents of shining a light on different artists, whether they are extremely, incredibly obscure, as well as to some sort of well-known artists. So they've done reissues for Blondie or the New York City-based group Blonde Redhead, Husker Du, etc. One of the ways they've proven to be very, very successful is that from the beginning, they were really focused on music syncing, which is the practice of getting songs to be, played or heard during movies or TV shows and things like that.
Little cut scene when they go into commercial from like the NBA playoffs or something.
Like that, but also when like a scene on Grey's Anatomy when they're trying to save the patient and things like that, and so it's your emotions are really up, and then they in comes this song, and you're like, wow, this is really powerful. It's making the scene so explosive. They have really sort of found these songs, and they're like, actually, this could be really great for your TV show, and so they've found a lot of success by doing that. So I wrote a story for the Chicago Tribune. One of the songs that I talked about was a song that was, again, very obscure, but ended up being in the Ryan Gosling movie Blue Valentine. It's a song called You and Me by a group called Penny and the Quarters. It's one of those songs where if you just heard the name, you're like, I don't know that. But if you actually heard the song, you'd be like, oh, I have heard this in commercials. I've heard this in TV shows, but they do tend to work with a lot of Chicago artists as well, and they're based in Chicago. So one that they're really well known for is working with Pastor T.L. Barrett, who's from the city's South Side. His song "Like a Ship" has been sampled by Kanye West a lot. It's been on the show Hacks. So they have a really just great understanding. Yeah, they have a really great understanding of how music that might have been, made in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s can really be relevant for culture in the present.
I mean, you mentioned Marion Black's Who Knows, which was featured in Severance, 60 million streams on Spotify. You talked about Like a Ship and Hacks. I will say one of my favorite things when I'm watching a show like a Severance and a Hacks, which I have binged multiple times at this point, is hitting Shazam on a song I've never heard, and the idea that may have connected me back to the Numero Group is so fascinating. I mean, if they say they find a song or a record in a garage sale, do they go out of their way to reconnect with the original artist? Are they always able to find the people who produced them?
Yeah, so they're always doing the work to find either the actual artist themselves, or oftentimes it's usually family members, the artist has passed and things like that. They want the artist or the band to get their money, right? To get their profit. So they're not just sort of finding things and then reissuing it themselves. They're always making the connections to those artists. And sometimes, it takes a lot of convincing of the artist as well. They'll be like, that was from a completely different part of my life. I don't care about music anymore. I don't make it, etc. And so they sort of do the work to show people that, or show these artists that their music matters and that they would like to re-release it. Whether they're known for doing really beautiful physical releases, vinyl box sets, things like that. But they also will re-release music online. They'll put it up on a YouTube, Spotify, things like that. And they do a lot of work with sort of building and creating playlists, right? Because that's how people will discover a lot of music nowadays. And so with those playlisting, they'll kind of re-release it in that way to kind of test it out, see how it does, see if the numbers are great, if people really like this song in particular, want to listen to it, and if it gets playlisted into other people's playlists on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever. And then they might consider doing a larger reissuing push later in the year or in the following year as well.
Oh, that's so dope. I got to check out their playlist. Shout out to Ken, Rob, everyone over at the Numero Group. I look at the picture you published in your article that Anna Powell Denton took, and my step grandparents were in a soul band in the 70s called Merge. And they would always tell us how many people would reach out to them to try to get it sampled or to try to sync it, and they'd always resist. And so I can only imagine Ken and Rob coming up to them, and my grandfather just being like, "What you know about soul music, boy?
Right.
What y'all know about soul music?" Just from listening to you talk about them and reading your piece, like it's clear that their legacy to uplift some of these artists has been like immensely beautiful and beneficial to so many of these folks over the last 2 decades. And so we will drop a link in the show notes to Britt's piece. Jasmine, back over to you. Last year, Governor Pritzker announced a first of its kind quantum computing campus coming to the southeast side. Quantum Shore, as it's being called, will sit on half of the 440-acre former South Work site. Just this week, we got some more updates. Jasmine, can you tell us about this most recent update? And also, how are neighbors still kind of reacting and coming around to this news?
It's kind of like what's going on here. But the big thing that was sort of standing out was the amount of investment in terms of like money and resources, as well as a lot of the concerns I've been hearing from local activists around the implications to the environment, and to the lakefront, right? Like our beautiful Lake Michigan, which is one of the largest bodies of natural water in the country, and the implications of having this new quantum computing center coming to the south side, and also the location, right? The fact that it's being placed on the southeast side, where there's been a history of, a lot of environmental implications for the different types of development and industry that have been, stationed in that part of the city.
We can go ahead and call it environmental racism. The ways
we sure
that
can.
the disinvestment from the mills leaving to the city deciding this will be, the southeast side is where our dump will be, where we will allow metal shredders to move. It has long been seen as in some ways, a disposable part of the city, at least in the way that the city relates to it.
Exactly. Yeah. So really like hearing, the news a while ago and then hearing more updates about different startups who are coming in, like IBM being involved in different companies, really investing. And what I think the concern, or what we can kind of see as like a natural cause and effect, is bringing in folks from outside of the city to take jobs at these centers, and what that will do to the surrounding, economy and the workforce and the community. So yeah, I just thought that it was important to elevate. I think although it's been a headline story, I think all the things that are happening in the background have been a little bit less covered, like gotten a less attention than I think they need to. So it just felt important to elevate the fact that lots of money, resources, energy, and investment are happening with the Quantum Center. And there's a lot of concern from folks who've been advocating for, and with better environmental conditions, better working conditions, and more investment in the community that currently lives in South Shore and surrounding communities.
One of the biggest frustrations, especially for neighbors and residents, is they've been promised for decades, right? They've sat through these meetings and been told this site would be used to bring more affordable housing, bring more jobs, bring entertainment, and to wait year after year and see nothing happen. And then all of a sudden in the last couple of years to see hundreds of millions of dollars being committed from the state, seeing billion-dollar companies like Quantum, IBM. Just this week, quantum company named Inflection announced that they would also be joining the campus. Just seeing how quickly momentum can move in this city, how quickly a site can be celebrated. In one of the stories I read, a resident watched as Governor Pritzker's helicopter flew over top, and this huge sort of ribbon cutting announcement about the future of this site was put forward. And they were like, I didn't even know this was happening. There was not a lot of connection between the community and the site. And to your point, I think something that has really been maybe put on the back burner is this idea that the full-time jobs that they are promising to the community aren't related to the tech or the field that they're actually building. So a lot of these workers will be brought in from outside of the state, from their California and their Texas campuses, an Australian quantum startup that's coming here. So I imagine some of their people will be coming here. And so it's hard to say a first of its kind quantum computing campus is for the neighborhood. I really appreciate you bringing us back to this, because I agree. It does feel like it is. It doesn't feel like this is a Lincoln Yards that is maybe slowly churning in the background on the shoulders of some big promises. This feels like it's kind of quietly being sped through because the race towards being the quantum computing hub is so fraught right now. And it seems like Governor Pritzker is really gun-ho on getting this realized.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the best thing we can do is showing up to like community meetings, making sure that we are chatting with aldermen, especially for folks who live in the area, whether that's like Woodlawn, Hyde Park, South Shore, et cetera, or just South Chicago in general, reaching out and trying to show up as much as possible to advocate and name those concerns.
A couple of weeks ago, we sat down with members of the CityCast Chicago team to put together our list of classic Chicago movies. Each person picked 3, which means there was always going to be a bunch that we either missed or didn't make the list despite our best debates. And Britt, you are celebrating the beloved Diana Ross classic Mahogany, which that was filmed partly in Chicago 50 years ago. Billy D. Williams was in this movie. We did not talk about this in our lead up to publishing the episode. So please remind us why we were asleep on such a iconic movie.
Well, I think Mahogany is very much a beloved movie for Black women who are maybe late boomers, Gen X, and kind of elder millennials. So there's a fairly large chance that if you were like younger than those generations, you might not have seen it, even though it is so significant, not only in terms of Chicago movie history, but also just fashion movie history in general. Stars Diana Ross. She plays a student named Tracy. She's a fashion design student, actually, in Chicago. And she's working at a department store, which the movie was actually filmed, or part of the movie was filmed at Marshall Fields. Rest in peace, love Marshall Fields. I used to work there when I was younger. So she worked at this department store that is like Marshall Fields, but isn't explicitly said as Marshall Fields. And she's discovered by a fashion photographer who is played by Anthony Perkins, which most people know him from Psycho. While there, he decides to photograph her and shoot her. And that kind of leads to her becoming a runway model in Rome. And so the film, though, is in large part about sort of the struggle for Tracy between being this huge overnight success and her having these strong ambitions and wanting to be, a successful model and a designer. She is kind of considered like a diva in some aspects, and she has had this relationship with Billy D. Williams. His character is sort of like a social activist, really fighting against gentrification. So it's kind of
looked like Jesse Jackson in the movie. Like, let's be real.
Yes. So it's funny to see this like portrayed in like 1975, right? And how he's kind of styled to be this certain type of character and things like that. So, it's just, it's not like the best movie ever, but I think that it's really enjoyable. It's really fabulous. And if you're like a fashion fan, it is just, chef's kiss. It's beautiful.
I mean, and it's a part of a legendary run for her. I mean, 3 years earlier, Diana Ross starred as Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues, which, of course, Billy D. Williams was in that too. And then this movie comes out 3 years before, of course, The Wiz, which I don't know a Black person who didn't watch The Wiz coming up. And so the idea that she just had a Chicago classic tucked between, I think, 2 movies that ultimately get a lot more fanfare in the canon, The Wiz and Lady Sings the Blues. But I literally was talking about Cooley High being this OG godfather of the Cabrini canon, and it comes out the exact same year as Mahogany and captures Chicago in its sort of 1970s glow in a completely different way than Cooley High. And so I'm glad that you reminded me that wasn't the only movie celebrating 50 years this year.
Yes. And, in celebration of it, Dr. Ricky Bird, who is academic, who focuses on sort of the history of Black fashion, African-American fashion, et cetera. She is doing this Mahogany at 50 programming in the city. It began earlier this year in June, and she has a couple of events that are taking place in August, including a screening of the film in Washington Park. park, but and then they're also going to be having a screening, I believe, of a documentary about the 70s and 80s fashion like supermodel Beth Ann Hardison that's taking place at the Siskel Film Center as well. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening around this movie and in celebration of it, and really just thinking about or recontextualizing Chicago as a fashion city, because people don't necessarily think of Chicago as a place for fashion, but there are really important figures and moments that not only sort of define Chicago fashion, but really define fashion in general. And I think Mahogany at 50 is one of those.
I love that. Mahogany in the Park, Saturday, August 2nd on the lawn of the DuSable from 6 to 10. And then Sunday, August 17th at noon, Invisible Beauty, an afternoon with Beth Ann Hardison at the Siskel Film Center. Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends the exact same way. That's with me begging you to bring your ass back here for the next one. Whether you've been with us for 1,000 episodes or if this is your first, remember, Monday through Friday, we are here exploring this beautiful city of ours, the good, the bad, the absolutely atrocious. But we are going to always send you home with some good news. I want to start with you, Jasmine. What is your good news for us today? And I'm going to be real. I hit that mug right there. I hit that one.
We love it. We love a good vocal performance, a good entrance. So mine is around Miyagi Records, which is a record store based in Washington Park that I really love. My friend actually is doing one of their DJing courses. So they offer these courses like seasonally, where they help folks who are interested in learning more about the art, the skill, the craft of DJing. They offer lessons for multiple weeks. And at the end, there's a graduation. So next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, August 2nd, the graduation is happening at Miyagi Records. There'll be more details probably on their social media account or through their newsletter. But I'm just really excited to hear. It'll be, I think, like 9 or 10 up-and-coming DJs will be performing and giving a full set with, their newfound skills, whether that's digital or vinyl. They also learn vinyl in class, which is really like a lost art form. So I'm just really excited to get to support my friend and also to, just hear some amazing, the amazing talent and gifts that these up-and-coming DJs have.
Shout out to Miyagi Records. I know earlier this summer they had an unfortunate moment when their windows were broken into. Their store was broken into. Their windows were broken, but the community really showed up with a lot of support, a lot of love. And so I'm glad to see that this relatively new record shop on the South Side is just been able to build so much community, so much programming in the last couple of years. Is really cool to see. We will drop a link in the show notes to Miyagi Records so you can follow their Instagram and stay tapped in with all of the events. Britt, over to you. What is your good news?
I am super excited. There's a new group exhibition that is opening at the School of the Art Institute. It's called Rest, Recess, and Resistance. It was created by the participants in this program that's called, that's led by A Long Walk Home. It's called Girl/Friends. It's a summer program. It's Black teen girls and non-binary people, usually between the ages of about 12 and 17. And so they did all this kind of programming around different forms of art, writing, photography, etc. I had the wonderful opportunity to be able to teach a writing workshop about a nonfiction essay that I had written a number of years ago. Last year, they actually did some programming around that essay, and I didn't know. I was, tagged in it online. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so,
that is dope.
And so this year, they asked me to do a workshop on it. And so we did a 3-part writing workshop. It was so just meaningful and just blew me away, because these are girls from South Side, from the West Side, but also from some of the suburbs as well, from Oak Park and River Forest and places like that, Evanston. And we came up with a group poem. And so that's going to be exhibited on the walls at this exhibition. So just very, very excited about it. A lot of their work is really around just empowering these young Black teens to, be artistic and creative, but also have a lot of security and understanding about themselves and their bodies and their place in the world. And so I am super excited, and it's public programming that people can come to, and that's going to be taking place. The opening reception is next Wednesday, July 30th at 5 p.m. So it's about my experiences going from living on the West Side in Austin and moving to Oak Park and losing friendship along the way. So yeah, so if you grew up in the city, especially if you're like a young Black girl who grew up in the city and had to experience the suburban shock, you might relate to the essay in particular.
I am going to close our good news out with a series of events I'm really excited to put y'all on. One, I wanted to let you know that last week's Humboldt Arboreal Society meetup in Humboldt Park got rescheduled for this week. And so Control Zora, Nosha Love, Raven Wright, and Spectre will be out there this Sunday. If you're looking for something to do, please go to chicago.citycast.fm and check out our events calendar. Our newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, works so hard on this, y'all. And we've got things that probably knew about, like the Sky versus the Fever this Sunday, Chinatown Summer Fair, which is happening all weekend long. Trust me, there is something for everybody on our list. This has been my go-to every single weekend to find something to do last minute. But y'all already know where I'm gonna be this weekend at Slow Jams at Expat. And so I'll see y'all there. Before we get out of here, please join me in thanking our guest today. Tribune music critic Britt Julius, always a great time, my friend.
Thank you. Love being here.
And freelance writer Jasmine Barnes, it was your first, but trust me, if you'll have us, it won't be your last.
Thank you so much for the time.
I want to give a huge thank you to the people who make CityCast Chicago possible. Our executive producer, Simone Alisea, our producer, Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, our social media manager, Rick Homuth. Our roving newsletter editor this week was Adrian Gonzalez. The music we all love is from the homie Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. Hey, if you enjoy the podcast, whether this was your first episode or your 1,000th episode, do me a favor. Share us with your friends and family. If you have already shared us with every single person you know, then you need to find some new friends. Maybe find some lost cousins. Maybe join a community org, a mutual aid group as a way to meet new people around the city. Maybe start riding public transit a little bit more. It's a lot of Chicagoans who can find out about us, and I'll be real, I can't inform all of them. You know, I need your help. Kobe, you gonna throw me some coin or something? No, I'm gonna keep giving you this for the free. You know, that's the incentive. I'm gonna keep showing up. I'm gonna be back bright and early on Monday. I'm gonna just assume you're gonna be there. I'm gonna just assume. I ain't even gonna ask. I'm gonna just assume. I'll talk to you then. Peace.